Let's get to it. It's history. Today, we present the second part of videos about Boturini Codex. Here, we will talk about its content, not limited to just describing the images. We will make a comparative analysis of it with other historical sources. The Codex focuses on the migration of the Mexica from Aztlan to the moment they arrived at Culhuacan, becoming vassals and mercenaries of the latter. Much of what is said about the Mexica migration is not only here, but also in other codices and various chronicles. We have other documents with evident Spanish influence that also speak of the migration. However, as often happens, there are contradictions among historical data. And this codex provides records and contradictory data that clash with each other, as we will see now. The first event it records is the mythical Aztlan, which is an islet from where the descendants of the Mexica, Tenochca, and Tlatelolca emerged. To this day, it is not known where it was, or if it was even a real place. If it existed, it is believed to have been in the north of the present-day Mexico. This place, which the Mexica themselves already, as lords of Texcoco Valley, tried to find, is referred to in the movie Return to Aztlan. But they failed, as they did not get very far due to the lack of data about its location. Interestingly, the Codex has two places with the same name, one almost at the beginning and one near the end. The first place was after leaving Aztlan, called Culhuacan, which means curved hill. And almost at the end of the Codex, the Mexica arrived at another Culhuacan governed by Tlatoani. These events occurred between these two Culhuacans over time, with each of these squares representing what we know today as one solar year. There are a lot of 188 squares, meaning the Codex explains what happens over 188 years. The way the Mexica conquered the years was with 4 signs called flint, house, rabbit, and red, interpreting these signs with 13 numerals, which are the circles next to each year sign. The first year of the Codex is the year 1 flint, and the last is 6 red, where the Mexican are sent to fight against the Xochimilques. Regarding the first year, there are contradictions about which current year it corresponds to. It is not as specific yet as it is in other colonial documents. There are several possible dates, such as 1064, 1116, 1168, and others, with no agreement or when the Mexicas left. Aztlan is supposed to have been an islet that inspired the Mexica to recreate it in another islet, now called Tenochtitlan. However, the most realistic scenario is that the Mexica arrived at that final place because it was assigned to them by the Tepencas. Depending on how the places they pass throughout are counted, the number varies between 24 and 27 sites. These places will relatively not be very far apart, as the farthest will be near present-day Tula de Hidalgo, and the others will be around Lake Texcoco. This codex dispels the great falsehood that almost all Mexicas keep repeating by calling them Aztecs and not Mexica. In its fourth sheet, an eagle appears, the sun, who would be with Chimalpain, giving them a bow, arrow, and fishing rod. Here, their name was changed, confirmed by other sources from Aztecas to Mexicas. The historical accuracy of the events in the Codex is sometimes confirmed, sometimes contradictory or not thoroughly analyzed. For example, Aztlan is divided into several calpuli and a main base, meaning we will not be facing nomadic and wild groups migrating from the north. Instead, it will be a settler population that already had a social and urban development. Perhaps not impressive, but developed nonetheless. So, how much knowledge did the Aztecs have of Aztlan? The reality is that there are several cities and cultures older than the Mexica to the north, located in many current states such as Querétaro, Zacatecas, Guanajuato, and even further north in the United States, like Cahokia. There are remains that do not belong to hunter and nomadic groups, leaving the question of whether they already had some organization as shown in the Codex or if this was embellished by the Mexica of Tenochtitlan. Either way, their departure was by order of Huitzilopochtli, in a cave where they made offerings, although some sources refer to this as a leader, meaning a human being who in turn received messages from their tutelary deity. But in any case, they live with a bundle containing his remains, along with other groups. Before leaving Aztlan, there is a duality where the woman is called Chimalpa by her glebe, another unnamed one. But when they receive the order to leave, 4 carriers of the sacred bundle of the homing bird of the south appear, called Chimalma, Apanecatl, Paucoatl, and Tezcatcoatl. They only appear twice in the Codex. They were later replaced by 4 unnamed characters, continuing the structures of 4 groups. A structure 4 represented in their cities, as also appears in the Spanish-influenced Codex Mendoza. The disappearance of the 4 carriers is logical, as if the Codex covers 188 years, the original guides will have died or been replaced along the way. Now, within the first year of their departure, one flint, the division of the still Aztecs and the other 7 groups occurred. These were the Matlacincas, Tepenecs, Tlahuicas, Maldinalcas, Xochimilcas, Chalcas, and Huexotzincas. But within the first year of travel, they arrived at a large tree that broke, staying there for 5 days and founding a shrine to the sacred bundle, giving the order to disappear from the other groups, going alone for the rest of the Codex. But despite being precise about places and years, it does not mention things that other sources do. An example of this is a place called Coatepec, or the Hill of the Serpent. In our Codex, it is just another place or passage, where they were already called Mexica. But in other sources, this place is where the battle of Coyolxauhqui and her 4,000 brothers against Coatlique and Huitzilopochtli took place, the place where the hummingbird was born. However, whether a real or mythical battle is not mentioned here at all. We also did not properly value how much knowledge the Aztecs, later Mexica, had from Aztlan. For this, let's use time as an example. I already mentioned that the document covers 188 years, but something that may seem obvious but is not knowing if the original Aztecs already had notions of time management from Aztlan. So they already counted as seen in the Codex, or was it superimposition by the Mexica of Tenochtitlan, who reconstructed the journey according to their current knowledge? It is not small matter of data referring to the celebration of new fires every 52 years, with the Codex having a total of 4 new fire lightnings, the last one being in Chapultepec. And thinking about new fires has a lot of knowledge and worldview behind it. So did the Aztecs already have these from Aztlan? What do you think? Although the Codex amazes especially pro-indigenous people, as presently a sample of their knowledge. It's several things that when analyzed closely may not be liked by many. The almost universally repeated discourse is that the Spanish conquered or invaded Mexico almost alone, and that the Mexica inexplicably fell to them, omitting uncomfortable data. But the Codex shows that there were disputes, conflicts, battles, and murders among these original groups. It was two sections where we see that the Mexica were expelled from two different places where other groups had settled. And in the last shed, they were subject by Calhuacan. The Mexica were in charge of cutting noses for the lord of Calhuacan using obsidian knives, because they needed weapons like the Macuahuitl and Chimali. As mercenaries, they had to wage war and cut the noses of the Xochimilcas, all of which explains an environment where there were conflicts among all these groups. Conflicts that in the final war of the Mexica against the Spanish causes many to leave the Mexica alone, given the background of those old conflicts mentioned in this codex. There is also a section where they might have discovered pulque, as in shed 14. It appears that they extract aguamiel from the maguey to make and drink pulque. Finally, the most important historical event of the Mexica, which is conspicuously absent, is the founding of Tenochtitlan. In this shed, Tezosomoc, the Tlatoani of Azcapotzalco, appears. So for that year, he already ruled Azcapotzalco, starting to dominate the entire valley as he indeed. It is not known whether that was the year he took power in Azcapotzalco, according to the Mexica. But it is known that after serving Calhuacan, the Mexica had to be tributaries to Tezosomoc. But this is not yet seen in the Codex, appearing only the vassalage to Calhuacan. However, if it is true that the Mexica migration began in 1168, the founding of Tenochtitlan should have been recorded here. Many believe it was founded in 1325, in a year 2 house. A founding record that does appear in the Codex Mendoza and other sources. That year obviously appears in the Boturini Codex, 2 sheds after Tezosomoc was painted. Thus, if as many sources say, Tenochtitlan was founded in 1325, year 2 house, this event should have been recorded here. And it is not. Contradicting the Codex Mendoza and other sources. Here the Mexica were still migrating for subjects and still had time to found Tenochtitlan. Some consider that Tenochtitlan was founded decades after 3025. This contradicts the Codex. For example, writing by the indigenous Domingo Chimalpain to Cali 3025. In this year, the Mexica Chichimeca came to establish themselves on the island to prove the contradiction of historical data that often occurs. So, which historical sources are correct? But with the omission of this codex, the data it provides, and what it does not, it is a historical source that sheds light on reconstructing the past of those times, highlighting in this video the data that go beyond the simple Mexican migration in those years. Due to limited time, I share a link where you can download this codex, so you can see it in detail and try, as I do, to discover its contents and significance.